game jam, a group of people who agree to make a video game in a set time period with a certain theme. One day, I was scrolling through itch.io and I found the Doodle game jam. It looked pretty fun. The only problem is, it started 3 days ago, which means I would only have about 2 days to make it. So, I joined the game jam and started to work on the game. Every game jam starts with brainstorming. It's always good to get a good idea of the game you're going to make, because you don't want your game to be huge due to the time constraint. It's always good to make your game jam games small, especially if it's your first time doing one. Eventually, I decided to make a Farmville-style game where your goal is to make a ridiculous amount of doodles, the in-game currency, and grow your factory. But what should I call it? Well, we have doodles, and we have a factory, so Doodle Factory. Not the most creative title, but it works. I then started a new Unity project called a Doodle Factory and started to set up the base functionality. You will be able to build different machines on a grid-based system, so after I set up the grid, it was time to set up the building system. Basically, each grid piece has its own script that checks whether or not you can build on it. If you can, it'll tell the build script that information. Then, if you have enough resources, you can place down your desired building. But we don't have any buildings yet, so I hopped on Blender and started modeling. There will be 4 buildings that you can make. The small factory that produces doodles, the large factory that produces sketches, the imagination maker, which produces imagination, and finally, the office, which does absolutely nothing. After a while, I finished modeling all of the buildings and they look great. I then imported them into Unity, and now you can place down buildings. Except you can't because I forgot to set up the UI. Crap. Today I set up the UI, which was pretty easy. There are 3 menus. The first one is the info bar. This element tells you the name of the building, which level it's on, more on that later, and enables you to tear down the building. The next menu I added is the resource bar. This tells you how many resources you have, and it's pretty simple. The last UI element I added was the building bar. This shows you what you can build, and whether or not you can afford it. Also, building networks. The next thing I added was upgrading. This feature allows the player to level up buildings in turn, generating twice as many resources per second. Also, I have found a bug that I'd like to call the point of no return. This happens when you keep upgrading a building and eventually you upgrade it so much that you generate an extreme amount of resources per second, which allows you to keep infinitely upgrading, which means that you can pretty much break the game. Now, I could just make it so you can only upgrade to a certain number, but I only have a couple of hours before the deadline, so sadly, I can't fix this. Anyways, it's time to add a main menu. The first thing I did was I added a play button, which was literally 1 line of code that just loads up the next scene. After that, I added a quit button, which was also just 1 line of code. I then added a title, some copyright-free music. I exported the game, put it on itch.io, set up the webpage, and we're done! Oh, and before I reveal the featured comment, I just wanted to say Doodle Factory is up right now on itch.io. You can play it. Although, it's not that perfect, and do be in mind there are a lot of bugs. But I think it was a success for my first ever game jam. Also, link in the description. I think it's the time you've all been waiting for. It's time for the featured comment of today's video. And without further ado, the comment that made me laugh and will be getting a shout out as well as a response is Piers Frieden. With his comment, Harvey says, "Hey, one of your comments is getting announced in the vid. Us? Typity type. Gotta come up with something." I really like your comment. It's pretty funny. So, go check out his channel and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video. It makes my day. Also, don't forget to subscribe, it really helps out the channel. And be sure to leave a comment, who knows, you might get featured in the next video. The link to it is in the description, so make sure to join. Anyways, my name's Harvey Gilman, I have a lot of editing to do, and you're watching Boulder Dash.